Sound check, 1, 2, 3. Sound check, 1, 2, 3.
Hello and good afternoon. I would like to call today's meeting of the Emergency and Community Services to order. A reminder to everyone to please switch their electronic devices to a silent, non-audible function during this meeting. Councillors, please ensure that you're logged into eScribe to participate in the votes and access the speakers list for today's meeting. And Clerk, are you able to confirm that quorum is present for today's meeting?
Yes, quorum is present.
Perfect. First on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Clerk, are there any changes to today's agenda?
We have an additional discussion item, 10.3, Wentworth Lodge Heritage Trust Fund Subcommittee Report 24-001 of January 11th, 2024.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Are we able to have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda today as it's been presented? Thank you, Councillor Nan and Councillor Wang. And that vote will be coming up shortly on eScribe. And seeing a thumbs up from Councillor Jackson. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Thumb is visible. Okay, moseying on along. That passes 7-0. Are there any declarations of interest to be made? Not seeing any declarations of interest, although I know we're all very interested in today's agenda. So seeing none, can I get a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes of our previous meeting on December 7th, 2023? Thank you, Councillor Kretsch and Councillor Jackson for seconding those. Seeing no discussion, the vote's up. All right, that carries 7-0. It is 1:32, and we are on our 8.1 staff presentations. First on today's agenda, we are hearing from the Hamilton Veterans Committee regarding their annual presentation for 2023. Please welcome the Chair of the Hamilton Veterans Committee, Michael Rehill.
There we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to address the committee. I have the 2023 Hamilton Veterans Committee report, which I believe is going to be, the presentation is going to be shared.
Yeah, the presentation is now visible to us, and we're also able to see you as well.
Perfect. Next slide, please.
Just give us one moment, please.
Yep. The second slide deals with our mandate. The committee reports to you, to council through the Emergency Services Committee. And we oversee the planning and delivery of military remembrance and commemoration activities on behalf of the city. We provide input to projects and issues that are of concern to veterans, and we try and maximize the engagement of youth in remembrance activities. Two of the ways we do that is we have a wreath project every year where we invite schools to create wreaths, and we also invite Six Nations schools to create wreaths for our Remembrance Day ceremonies. And we have a Decoration Day project, which is headed by the local Army, Air, and Navy cadets, where we encourage them to do research on various Hamiltonians whose gravestones are located in Hamilton Cemetery, and we have a ceremony on Decoration Day with them as the feature commemorators every year. Next slide, please. I'm sure everyone can read that. Next slide, please. So there's some pictures of the wreaths I was just referring to, and the lower pictures on the right is depicting our Decoration Day ceremonies, which is a Hamiltonian originating from the Battle of Ridgeway in 1866, where Hamiltonians would decorate the graves of their fallen. And you can see in the lower right-hand picture there, the cadets have decorated the graves with Canadian flags and poppies. Next slide, please. Some of the things we've done in recent years to make the ceremonies more accessible, specifically the Remembrance Day ceremonies, which we hold 2 of at Gore Park, is the addition of video screens, and we have been working with Cogeco to live stream these ceremonies to reach the most number of Hamiltonians that we can. So it's actually had a lot of great comments from the public and from the participants in the ceremonies of being able to see what's actually going on at the ceremony, specifically this past Remembrance Day. As I've said, we broadcast live video coverage of the events and commemoration of certain streets. And I believe right now we've got a Poppy Crosswalk project coming from Councillor Beatty's office, which the committee is involved in advising him on. And we have the Wreath Project, as I've already stated, and the Cadets leading Decoration Day to ensure the passing on of the traditions of remembrance to our youth. Next slide, please. Our future goals, our biggest challenge seems to be with specifically the changing age of veterans, specifically the World War II veterans and the Korean War veterans who are sadly passing away. A lot of the local veterans organizations are experiencing financial difficulties and organizational difficulties. So our daily, weekly, monthly challenge is to ensure that we reach our veterans through these agencies. And it's becoming more and more of a problem. A lot of the older people don't have email and don't use social media, so that's the focus of a lot of our things. And we've tried to even physically gone to the building and handed paper in order to get more increased participation in our remembrance ceremonies and our Decoration Day ceremony. So that is a continuation and something we are focused on. And I think we've done a really good job of expanding engagement and education of youth in the city. And we were really pleased with the response from the youth, both the Wreath Project, the local schools, and the cadets. And we have 3 resource members sitting on our committee who actually are in charge of the 3 branches of the cadets in the city. And that makes our job really easy to reach out to all the local cadet corps. Next slide, please. We would like to thank you, first of all, for letting us have this committee, which is a labor of love for all the members of the committee. Specifically, I'd like to thank City Council for letting us to continue on when all the other advisory committees were paused. That enabled us to do Remembrance Day this year and also continue planning for Decoration Day in June. And I'd like to thank you for supporting the HSR waiver for buses chartered for HVC hosted events. And I'd like to thank you for your continuous support of veterans-related issues. Next slide, please. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much for the presentation today. I really appreciate that, specifically about hearing the engagement with youth and how you're moving forward in 2024, continuing on that success. I'm going to look around the room here and see if we have questions on the presentation we've received today. The speakers list is open. No, it does. It looks like your presentation was comprehensive, not seeing questions in the room. Thank you again for coming out, sharing what the committee's been up to. And I know personally, we've had the chance to connect around the Dundas Remembrance Day and some of the pieces there. And so really excited that this committee exists and is continuing there on a day-to-day basis. So when there are those efforts, we can plug in. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Would I be able to have a mover and a seconder to receive that presentation we've received today? Councillor Crutch and Councillor Wang, thank you. And that votes up. Thank Thank you. That vote carries 7-0. Next on our agenda is discussion items. There are 3 reports that we're discussing today, the first of which is 10.1, the use of Indigenous images/themes in city sports and recreation facilities. May I have a mover and a seconder to put this report and recommendations on the floor? Thank you, Councillor Nan and Councillor Wang. Are there any questions regarding the report? Staff are here and present to answer any questions. And seeing a request for a brief overview about this work and project.
Through the chair, Chris Hurstick, Acting General Manager, Community Services. Steve Savor, who's the Acting Director of Recreation, will provide an overview of the report.
Thank you. Through the chair, Steve Savor, Acting Director of Recreation. This report represents the work completed by recreation staff, in addition to children's and community services staff, as a response to the 2019 letter from the Ontario Human Rights Commission. The original human rights complaint was directed to the city of Mississauga, and following the ruling by the Human Rights Tribunal, the commissioner wrote to all Ontario municipalities to encourage the development of a policy on the use of Indigenous images and themes within city sports and recreation facilities. This report speaks to the policy and staff procedures that have been developed following consultation with our community. We feel that we have crafted a policy and staff procedures that meet the needs of our community and are in line with other municipalities as well. Myself and Director Jessica Chase are here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that overview. Are there any follow-up questions from committee at this time? Yeah, Councillor Wang.
Thank you. Perhaps you can direct me to what are we doing for existing images and how are we potentially rectifying that? I don't know if I see that in Appendix A or Appendix B, so I was just wondering, what are we doing for existing imagery?
Thank you, through the chair. As a response to the original request, once we did receive the letter, staff did initiate a review of all of our sport and recreation facilities to see if there was any potential issues with any of those facilities, and we at that time did not discover any issues in our facilities at this point.
Okay, and my follow-up question is, will this policy be able to roll out to all existing municipally owned buildings beyond sports and recreation facilities? Is it robust enough that we can apply it as a blanket sort of policy for all buildings?
Good afternoon. Through the chair to the councillor, Jessica Chase, Director of Children's and Community Services. So for this policy, it is specific to the facilities within the recreation division. However, I think that there is certainly opportunity as part of the work tied to the urban Indigenous strategy for us to continue to look at how Indigenous themes and logos are used across city facilities. This specific policy, however, was in response to that letter that came from the Ontario Human Rights Commission. So I think it is a starting point, but certainly not the end of the conversation. And I think part of the other work that the Indigenous Relations team will be doing is looking at how those are represented and also how we can ensure that the voices and contribution and history of the Indigenous community is represented right across our city.
Okay. Chair, I think I appreciate that answer. I would like to understand what would potential next steps be to roll this out across the entire organization and across all city-owned assets, but I don't know who to direct that question to.
Through the chair, if the council would like to provide direction to staff in way of a motion, we'd be able to take on that work this year.
Okay, so I'll leave that for later then. Thank you, Chair.
Later may be sooner than we think, as I am not seeing anyone else on the speakers list at this time. Pardon? And thank you, Councillor Nan, for beating me there. Yeah, we can also do this offline in advance of council if it's maybe smaller or more minor and can be worked on with staff and then ready to go. If we want to have more discussion to inform that, happy to do that here. That's what we're here for. If there are further questions you need to have in this meeting.
I think I'd like to just take it offline and see if I could work with staff on developing something for council later on next week. Thank you.
Look at us go. We're moving right through because I think at this point the speakers list is exhausted. Again, not in a rush. If folks want to jump on, we can. But not seeing anyone doing that, I'm going to call for the vote, please. And that vote carries 7-0. Thank you. Next, we are on to 10.2, Citizen Committee Report, the Seniors Advisory Committee's Communication Strategy. Would I be able to start by having a mover and a seconder to put this recommendation report on the floor? Councillor Jackson and Councillor Nan have moved and seconded that. As we're taking any questions regarding the report, staff are present and here to answer any questions. And I also believe that the chair of the Seniors Advisory Committee may be with us today as well. May not be with us currently. That's all right. But we definitely have folks who can answer those questions here today if folks do have questions on the report. Councillor Nan.
Thank you. Less of a question and more of a comment, just appreciating the advisory committee taking on developing the survey and circulating it for public awareness. It's to help improve communications with older adults living in Hamilton, and the survey is being designed to help gain a broader understanding of the methods and communication preferences of older adults living in Hamilton, which I think will be quite informative for us as a municipality, and especially in light of the conversation we had yesterday at GIC as it relates to our public engagement work going forward. So appreciating the work of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nan. At this time, it looks like that exhausts our speakers list. We have had a mover and a seconder for this item. Would we be able to have a vote through you, Madam Clerk? And that vote carries 7-0. Thank you, everyone. We're moving on to the third of our 3 discussion items, and this is the Wentworth Lodge Heritage Trust Fund Subcommittee Report 24001, January 11th, 2024. Would we be able to have a mover? And I will second, once we have that mover, thank you, Councillor Wang, to put the report on the floor. With the report on the floor, are there any questions regarding this report? Yes, Councillor Wang.
Just a point of clarification, this is also in relation to the potential investment no, that's not.
I'm sure we have Holly Lombardi here who would be happy to give a brief overview of what this reserve is and maybe how some of it's used, what the history is, and what's going on in this report.
Yes, please.
Through the chair, Holly O'Doherty, Senior Administrator, Long-Term Care Division. This funding here was through a resident donation. And there was a subcommittee that was created to support how this money was used. And the recommendation that has been quite historical since I've been there is a 90% of the funds that is reinvested through the GIC, and 10% is available for staff use to support residents' needs in the home.
Thank you. And yes, this report is to continue that historic practice into the next year. Not seeing any further questions or comments on this report, happy to call for the vote. And much like everything else today, that I believe carries 7-0. And now we are on to motions. Councillor Wang, I understand that you have a motion for us today. Would you be able to introduce your motion and your seconder?
Yes, moved by myself and looking for a seconder. Councillor Wilson, Alex Wilson. We want to thank Bonnie Elder. She was the current administrator for Ontario Works. She is retired as of December 2023. And this motion is speaking to asking Ms. Robin McCormick to be appointed the acting administrator of Ontario Works in the interim. And so therefore be it resolved that Robin McCormick be appointed the acting administrator of Ontario Works, and that staff be directed to submit a copy of this motion to the Ministry of Community and Social Services as a written declaration of council's appointment.
Thank you for introducing your motion, Councillor Wang. Are there any questions or comments on that motion today? I'm not seeing any. With that, we can move forward with the vote. And surprise, surprise, 7-0. Moving forward, is there any general information or other business today? Not seeing any. There's only one thing left to do. If there is no other business, may I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn today's meeting? No one wants to go. Oh, Councillor Wang's ready to go. Moved by Councillor Wang, seconded by Councillor Jackson. There we go. Yeah, happy. Thank you, everyone. And keeping consistent, that passes 7-0. Thank you, everyone, for the first, albeit brief, meeting of the Emergency and Community Services meeting for 2024. We're excited to be coming back in 2 weeks.